The important thing is for people to remember, under the Trump-Pence administration, we had solved the crisis of illegal immigration at our southern border, and President Biden and his administration reinvented it. I mean, they immediately suspended construction on the border wall, and they ended that Remain in Mexico policy.
I was in a position where I desperately needed a job, and I went around to these locations that Dick said were only Hispanics, like in the restaurants, for example, in the kitchen, and I couldn't even get my foot in the door.
I've got 38 years experience in heavy demolition, and I've got turned down for 3 jobs because I don't speak Spanish.
That will lead to an invasion of illegal immigration. It will put jet fuel on a system that's already broken. If you give one person legal status, there will be a run on our border like you've never seen before. The dumbest idea in the history of the Senate, the history of the White House. It will lead to a breakdown of law and order beyond what you see today.
So today we return to breaking down ridiculous articles, this time from Fox News, titled, "Democrats will look to illegal immigrants for votes in 2022. Yes, the great replacement theory continues because, as we all know, before the pandemic, the Trump years, they were so prosperous. Workers weren't struggling, people weren't struggling, prices weren't out of control, wages were everything was so great, as we know. But now that, the Democrats they can't win on policy, ironically, of course, the Republicans can't either. But now that the Democrats can't win on policy, they're going to look to illegal immigrants to fill in the gap. So let's read a passage from here and then we'll continue. Democrats will face 2 choices going forward. Either moderate their policy agenda to appeal to their voters, or find a new pool of voters to replace the ones they no longer agree with. Coincidentally, or not, a tsunami of new potential voters is swarming across the southern border unimpeded, all of whom will owe their successful entry to the policies of Democrats. Yes, it's all a ploy. Swarm in the illegal brown immigrants. No one else counts. Immigrants from elsewhere, they don't count. Only the brown immigrants. Swarm them in and we'll win.
If he right now continues this policy, we're on pace for 2.3 million illegals. Think about how many we're not catching. And he's basically releasing 30 to 40% of them into this country. And they're not all from Guatemala and Mexico. You're getting people from Africa, from the Middle East, from Venezuela. And there's no way we know who these people are. Dick Durbin even said it. We're opening the borders for political reasons. He says that new voters, a.k.a. foreign-born voters in America, do not vote for the Republican Party. And that is the demographic trend, he said. And he's right. Foreign-born voters vote 2-to-1 Democrat. And 1 in 10 voters are foreign-born, and that trend is going to continue.
I wanted to read that, read over those little sections for you, just so you can see, not to really consider millions of people in this country read this and take it as the gospel truth, even though it's clearly untrue. I mean, people aren't just coming over here and just voting for the Democratic Party like, The biggest issue with the Democratic Party, as some of them pointed out, is that they don't deliver on policy issues. But undocumented immigrants, they're not citizens. They can't register to vote. They can't just show up. If they're undocumented by law, they can't be here. So if they show up to the voting polls, that could get them shipped back. But again, this is the inherent country's racism that we know that Fox News and other major right-wing outlets tap into. We know that Republican candidates tap into it. We know that's how Donald Trump got where he is. And we know that that's where the Republican Party is extremely likely to remain, because they can't escape it. So I hope you had as much fun with that as I did, because it's just ridiculous. They go by the same playbook each and every time. It never gets old, and why change it if it ain't broken? So let's continue to mobilize.